Greetings, nerds. This is SNN Nerd. I'm your host, Sarah Belmont, and with me, as always, is our Mr. Producer, Will Polk. How are you doing tonight, Will?
Doing very well, Sarah. How are you doing this Monday evening?
I'm doing fine, but we got a lot to cover.
We do. It's I know before we started, before I hit the record button, you were like, "This thing is now all of a sudden 3 pages." I'm like, yeah, I guess it is.
I mean, there was a lot that has happened. Yeah. I mean, of course, we are just going to start with the biggest thing we can, which is Spider-Man 3 will be called No Way Home.
Yeah.
Oh, Christmas Day.
Christmas Day, yes, and chances are it will probably stick with that Christmas release date. But yeah, it was funny that I guess Tom Holland and several members of a few members since I and the cast were having fun with names and with us, and then of course they had the nice video that dropped last week with the new name No Way Home, and of course I think following up from that, Tom Holland was in it. I saw an interview where he pretty much said that Toby and Andrew are not going to be in the film, but we'll see.
So Doctor Strange will come out after.
Mm-hmm.
No way. Okay, that's interesting. That actually gives more credit to Tom Holland saying, "Yeah, they're not. I'm the only Spider."
Yeah, because I want to say Doctor Strange. I want to say it's March 2022.
Okay, I can. Woo. I don't know. The Batman will be out that month. I don't know, Doctor Strange. That's a bit risky for me. Okay, but granted, it has this really beautiful build up that I like to call WandaVision. However, it's away. Anyway, we'll get there.
And hopefully it won't be the last one with Tom too, because he also does. This is his last one as far as under his contract, so we shall see.
Yeah. And then, meanwhile, in DC land, Superman and Lois debuted on the CW. Everyone is just saying it's raw, it's interesting, it's what they wanted in the movies, which I feel like the CW verse is used to that comparison by this point.
Yeah. That's like Roach, check the box, compare it to the movies.
Compare it to the movies. Why are they doing this type of storytelling on essentially a teen network? I mean, that's the young 20-year-olds and lower is the prime audience for CW, and yet it has all of these Superman or all of these superhero shows that seem to revitalize the franchise. I watched it. Here's my one critique.
Okay.
It did not need to be 2 hours. It did not need to be like this. And it wasn't even 2 hours. I think the runtime was an hour.
Yeah. Yeah, it was about an hour, maybe 20 with commercials.
Yeah, it didn't need to be that. They really did not have to. I saw where it was all going, and I was like, okay. But overall, I think that it did what a pilot should do.
Mm-hmm.
Where for some reason, I kept thinking about the Flash pilot.
Mm-hmm.
And if you rewatch the Flash, they do some stuff. Never continues throughout the rest of the show.
Yeah.
and I think with this pilot, I couldn't pick up on anything that I was thinking to myself, that's going to change. They're not going to do that. Mm-hmm. It was very much just about the characters and us recognizing this as not another Superman show, but a show about the Kents.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with you there. I did like it as far as pilots go, and the Flash is a very good comparison because, like the Flash pilot, this one definitely came out of the gate very strong. I think it definitely, in a lot of ways, it seems they ignored Crisis and ignored the fact that they are, well, maybe not ignored Crisis, but that they are part of the Arrowverse, because I felt like it was almost like a reboot of the character of what we've seen up to this point in the Arrowverse. So I as far as thematic things about it, it definitely felt a little bit more grounded, and also something I'll get into with Black Lightning later. And even on Batwoman we saw this week as well, is what toll you being a superhero takes on your family. And I really liked that aspect of it, as far as the Kents and his with his son. Thinking Superman was boring, but also just all the dynamics as far as just their daily lives, trying to raise a family, all the pressures of paying bills and things that you normally don't see in the Arrowverse shows. So I mean, it definitely was different. But also, I think it also gave us, it really fleshed out Clark Kent as a as a person, and some of the things that he was having to deal with, and with losing his mother, and also having all those powers. It reminded me of a line in Superman the movie where he's like, all these powers, and I couldn't save him, talking about Jonathan when he had his heart attack. And I think of the same with what he's dealing with in this show.
Right. It really made him appear as a father, a flawed father, and which I like that twist, because we're very much used to him being a son in the story, and he has sons of his own to look after, and so we'll see how it goes. I mean, again, it always is going to get compared to the Flash season 1, because the Flash season 1 is probably one of the, if not the best CW full complete seasons there is.
Yeah, for sure.
Good luck with that. Also, something that DC loves to do is right when they launch a show, they love to talk about movies. Yeah. Because this week felt like the best time for it to get put out there in the world that Black Panther comic author Tanisha Coates is writing a Superman reboot movie for Warner Brothers, and DC J.J. Abrams is producing under his Bad Robot label. And no word on if Henry Cavill is returning, and that is primarily because everyone is casting Michael B. Jordan as the Superman. And I say the Superman because we don't know if it's going to be Clark Kent or if it's going to be a different version. But I think it's interesting. J.J. Abrams is someone who I'm kind of like, okay. Yeah. He doesn't have the best track record with me. I'll say that.
I think that's fair. When I saw this, I was like, well, it could be The Force Awakens JJ, or it could be The Rise of Skywalker JJ.
I mean, the Force Awakens, I didn't even think that was that great. I think everyone liked that movie because of the nostalgia of it. Okay. But looking back on it, or my first impression of it was it's paint by numbers.
Yeah, it is.
And it was like that entire trilogy, but still.
Yeah, maybe Star Trek may be another where he rebooted a franchise. And I thought the 2009 version of Star Trek in the Kelvin universe was very, very, very well done. So, but
Will be neutral party.
Yeah. Well, hey, I could easily be like one of these old heads, be like, well, okay, if it's not, William Shatner, then it's not Star Trek. But I'm not going to be that person. But one thing I did want to, I thought about this in an article I read earlier this evening, and I tweeted it out from about Black Panther. Speaking of Tanisha Coates and the whole issue of recasting, and to your point about Michael B. Jordan being fan cast so far, and the whole thing about whether or not Chadwick Boseman, whether or not T'Challa should be recast. And it was this article was really made some really excellent points that really, if they really wanted to honor the character and Chadwick, is indeed to recast, because and I thought about this in the context of Superman. We've had we talked about Henry Cavill. We've had multiple actors play this character, even after, obviously Christopher Reeve had his accident and, Brandon Routh came in and took over. But yet made a point in particular with African American heroes, why can't we do that with T'Challa?
Right.
And it was a really good piece. Go to my personal page. I tweeted it there and retweeted it from our show account. Really, really thought provoking on this, especially in the context of talking about reboots and recast.
One thing I want to point out though.
Yeah.
The way you just said that, you made it sound like Christopher Reeves got in an accident, and then the very next day Brandon Routh.
I know, but my point. Fair enough.
I get your point. I completely get your point.
Yeah.
But I just say there was a time gap there.
Yeah, and that's one of the things this article makes the point that they could, given that we've heard the news that they're going to do a Wakanda show, you could use that time period to give a little bit more space between Chadwick's death and Black Panther 2. So. Yeah.
No, I agree with you. I think that at the end of the day, they're initially, and I think it was just the shock of it all.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, how do we proceed given this tragedy that has occurred, and being respectful, but also not moving on too quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where Feige and Marvel are kind of it's a balancing act.
Yeah.
So even if they don't immediately recast him for Black Panther 2, I still don't think it's not something that maybe once there's more breath between Chadwick's passing and when we get the new T'Challa, I think they'll return to that well is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
It just and in Feige we trust.
Exactly.
We'll know when the right time is to go back there and do the recast, because you're just withholding another opportunity, for another star.
Yeah.
And that's not what Chadwick was about at all. So
exactly.
And speaking about Chadwick, he is the winner of a Golden Globe, and so are a lot of other people. Some other people I want to worth noting is basically the cast of The Crown.
Yeah, gosh.
And we knew it. Yeah. We knew that season. The actor and the actress who play Charles and Diana, it's
Yeah, go ahead.
They carried that show.
They really did. And so did Gillian Anderson, I have to say.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. I just wish her husband would have gotten something, too, because he killed me whenever he appeared on screen. But I'm very happy for them. Surprisingly, all I've been hearing for months now, Will, is this talk about Promising Young Woman.
Mm-hmm.
Promising Young Woman.
Yep.
And Judas and the Black Messiah.
Mm-hmm.
But I was very shocked when this other film that I had heard about, but not nearly as much as the other two, called No Man Land, basically just felt like it swept a lot of stuff.
It did. It got the notable. Yeah, I mean, it got the two biggies. I mean, it got director and motion picture.
Francis won too, right?
I think so. I have to go back and look at the list.
What, is she becoming the next Meryl? Whenever she's not
exactly. Yeah. The other notable ones I had noted was of course Aubrey Day, for winning U.S. v. Billie Holiday, and only the second black actress to win in 35 years after Whoopi won, I guess, for was it Sister Act or Color Purple?
Probably the color. Yeah, I would think the color.
Yeah. Sorry. I knew I can't recall which one. But I guess timing wise, that would be about right. And then
was it Ghost? It was Ghost.
It was Ghost. That's right.
It was Ghost because Color Purple, I think, I have to look this up now.
was,
I'm really gonna kick myself. But I think Color Purple is almost notable as having all of these nominations and winning hardly anything.
yeah.
Yeah, it was just very, very strange. But anyway,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, there was that. There was that, and then of course, yeah, the comedy category, Schitt's Creek got its Golden Globe win, its departing gift, since it's obviously finished up this past year as well. So
Yeah. It's still, so I am treating awards season very much like how my dad treated the football season. It's a fake season.
yeah,
Okay. Because the timing is just messing with my head and it doesn't feel real.
right, yeah,
We've gotten so few, like the fact that we've gone without the cinemas for pretty much a year now, it just, everything about this feels so removed and isolated that I'm very much not, I'm not like in previous years where I was all about it. So
yeah,
but,
yeah, same. I mean, I did what, yeah, but I did catch Judas and the Black Messiah. Very good film.
Me too. I watched it too. I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
It's proof of why I never understand history teachers. They're like, you can't learn history by watching movies. I'm like, well, yeah, sometimes those movies are really well done
Yep.
and better and more interesting than the actual history book.
Yep, exactly.
I'm just going to go and rewatch Hamilton. Thank you very much. That's my... All right, Will, why don't you walk us through what's going on in Freeland these days?
So, episode 4-3 of Black Lightning, the Book of Reconstruction. Quick recap on this particular episode. Again, solid outing for Black Lightning this week. It was several notable things happened. First, of course, Jefferson is still in a really bad place as far as Henderson. And Lynn is also still experimenting on herself, trying to be someone who can help Lightning and Thunder keep order in the Freeland streets, because Jefferson has completely hung up the costume. He's given it back to Gambit. He's done. He doesn't have anything to do with Black Lightning, which of course, just like we saw in the first season, now the 100 and Tobias and the gangs are, of course, getting control again in Freeland. So, and to that point, Lala actually set up a MMA cage style fight club that he was actually streaming over the internet, so people could like place their bets. And the teacher that Jefferson who lost their son in last week's episode due to the crossfire between all the gang wars. He had given Jefferson an excuse that he was a bouncer, but actually he was in Lala's fight club, and Jefferson tracked it down and ended up in Lala's fight club against this opponent who was Lala had basically put in to basically beat anybody, so he could obviously control all the winnings in the purse when people made bets on these fights. So that was a very interesting thing as far as Jefferson hanging up his costume as Black Lightning, but he's still going around being a crime fighter, but not as Black Lightning, but as Jefferson Pierce, utilizing his Black Lightning powers. So there was a lot of talk with that going on this week. Another really interesting thing as far as just bringing the show into the larger fold of the DC Arrowverse is Lynn, whenever she was in her therapy session, talking about her family, and she notes that her brother had dropped out of college and joined the army, and of course Lynn's last name is Stewart, and we learned in Arrow that it was General Stewart who adopted Diggle, and yeah, so they made it canon in this show this week that Lynn and Diggle are brother and sister. So which I thought was like, as soon as I heard that, I was like, what? They did it. Mm-hmm. I was so excited. I was like, we had theorized about it for a while and wondered if that was going to make that happen. So Green Lantern is coming, y'all. Green Lantern is coming. and so there was that. And, of course, Thunder, and Grace finally woke up from her coma, and they finally were able to tie the knot. And Gamby is playing with fire with his new girlfriend. Of course, he was able to get one of the direct energy weapons that her company was building. So, of course, that is going to end up blowing up in his face at some point. And speaking of things blowing up, Jennifer was given the faux news treatment as far as her antics, as far as one of the local media shows was basically doing a hatchet job on lightning, and Jennifer decided to create her own narrative and set up social media accounts. So, that's definitely not going to end well either. But that's something that did take place this week. And then the biggie was Jefferson and Lynn were trying to patch together their marriage, and he arranged a date night for her. And then Lynn gets to the restaurant, and Tobias is there, and Tobias was like, "Come on, let's have dinner, let's talk." And so Lynn sits down. Tobias offers her all the funding and materials that she needs to be able to cure disease. And of course Jefferson walks in, and we fade to black as he heads out of the restaurant pissed off. So lots going on with Black Lightning. Hopefully they'll be able to tie up all these threads that they're dropping this season, and I hope they do it. It's not one of those like quick resolution things, because there's a lot going on in the show right now.
Yeah, I appreciate how you just broke all that down. Very straight face, very calm, cool, and collected. And I don't know if the listeners fully understood your last point. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to read it from our rundown. This is what Will meant to say. So if he didn't, he put on the rundown. Tobias has an indecent proposal for Lynn, and Jeff walks in. The images that run through my mind. Very strange.
I meant to, yeah. I'm sorry. I was talking from memory. I didn't look at the notes. But
I was just listening to you, and I said, "Is he gonna say that?" And he didn't, and I was like, "No, I'm not. I'm gonna make sure our listeners know your true thoughts." It was,
That's whenever I was watching. I was making the show notes as I was watching the episode, and I made that note at the beginning instead of seeing how it ended at the end.
Cliffhangers for sure.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, in Gotham, we got a brand new episode. Our last for 2 more weeks, as it goes on some hiatus. But don't worry, that just means we got time for the Flash next time.
Exactly.
This episode, I don't know about this season. I don't know if it's slow or something. This episode, I kept thinking, and I blame Will as always. Will puts things in my head, and then I watch these shows and I can't get them out of my head. Because all of your points about Alice last week, I was so distracted this week watching the episode where I kept thinking, damn it, Will is so right. Alice does not belong in the story anymore, and it's not good. It's very noticeable now.
And here's the thing, I will completely blow your mind this week about Alice.
Really? Well, go ahead, do it.
Well, I agree with you. Let me just first say that I agree with you that this episode. And the other thing that hit me was we're already at the 6th episode with this season.
Yeah, it's going by quick.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And I felt that it did. For me, it started off slow this week. Mm-hmm. And then, especially when they were doing the work, trying to use the Desert Rose antidote, and it just seemed like, I don't know, it just took me a while to get into the episode. But once I did get into it, I thought it was a pretty solid outing overall. Even the Alice story, because the reason why this week Alice worked for me was because she was classical Alice.
Was she?
She was. I mean, beat by beat, the things that makes Alice interesting, I felt helped carry the story forward this week because they did tie. I felt this week they did a better job of tying the Napier map painting into the overall story better this week.
So I will see your point, but I think there was one moment that was classical Alice, and it was very, very, very end. The last like 2 minutes, I was like, okay, Alice partially back.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, I think that the why she didn't stand out as much to you this week is because of the painting, not so much of her, but the painting and Ocean. Like, Ocean suddenly got connected to Angelique, which connects Angelique to Ryan, and suddenly we have more motivation. Like, they really are moving in a way where Ryan is being pushed into the center of this whole web, with Sophia and the cure, which is something that, for whatever reason, this always happens to me when I watch Batwoman. At the very beginning, there's a few scenes, and then I think to myself, oh, I wonder if they're going to use the cure on Ryan, the kryptonite, and, oh, okay, I see where we're going now.
Yeah, I had that same thought this week as well.
I see where we're going now. Very anticlimactic, but which I agree. I think oddly enough, this episode does a really good job with tying these ends that for the past few episodes have felt very disconnected, and trying to bring them together to bring everyone on the same page. But at the same time, for whatever reason, it was really hard to get into.
Yeah, I don't know. It was. Yeah, I don't know if this is the way it was edited or.
I got to about the editing.
Yeah, or what it was, but yeah, it just seemed that with the kid and then of course the person in the asylum who was who needed the cure to help him with his with the brain operations that Hamilton Labs did on him. It just seemed like, okay, where are they going with this? But once like I said, once it got going, and then of course when Jacob and Mary are having their moment in the car, and of course there's something about there's people getting rammed in bat themed products, because I thought about when Christian Bale's Batman rammed a car to keep the guy from making it to the TV studio to tell the world who he was. But it was one of those things where, okay, it's to my point earlier in their show, where we're dealing with fathers not knowing or the toll that it takes on them and doing all this crime fighting. In the case of Jacob Kane, really not knowing who Mary was, and even his widow, his Mary's mother, and I don't know, and maybe it ties back to his obsession with trying to find out what happened to Beth early on. I don't know what caused Jacob to lose track of the rest of his family. Was it building the crows? I don't know what it was, but I thought it was just a through line I saw in some shows this week that made me think about the bigger point of what doing this type of work takes on individuals.
Yeah, Mary is always going to stand out to me, and when they do stuff with her, I think that it's kind of, it didn't hit as hard as in other weeks, but I still appreciated that it's Yeah, so dad or stepdad or whoever I should call you these days because my mom isn't around anymore.
Mm-hmm.
We only have each other left in this crazy family that we've built, and I'm running this lab, this clinic, this underground clinic illegally, kind of. So I'm, and it kind of goes back to Mary's been leading this double life too,
Mm-hmm.
that we always forget about.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that they didn't reveal, and FYI, I'm working with Batwoman.
Yeah.
But I think that it was still just enough to kind of talk about that double life and that tool that you were speaking about as well. On top of that, we have a lot of Ryan and Angelique and Sophie. They're totally setting up Ryan and Sophie getting together, like, in a few seasons. I don't know if they can rush it.
Yeah.
But enemies to lovers. Classic. 101.
You think?
Angelique, we knew she was gonna do something, and they had a heartbreaking goodbye because of Sophie. And what else happened?
Yeah. I thought that was very. I saw the heartbreak. Again, like certain things were telegraphed. Like, for example, the Krypton poisoning cure being the Desert Rose. And we wondered what was going to be the breaking point for Ryan and Angelique, and it was, interesting enough, the Crows, and I thought that was, I thought about Luke's. I'm talking sound like Mary now when she was trying to call for help. I thought Luke's comment about Ryan being a hero really, not only where she's trying to fight a terminal disease, but also the choices that she's been making for Angelique, first years ago when she took the fall for her, and which led her to be in prison, and her first interaction with the Crows and Sophie, and then now trying to help Angelique get out of the collective, and setting up this deal with Sophie, and the real the big takeaway, it seems, with Angelique and Ryan's relationship is, Ryan really wants to help, but Angelique is just a person that won't accept that help, and the other piece to it is, as well, is given how Brian was so, like, burned it all down with the Crows to Mary and Luke, and she had the conversation on the rooftop with Ryan, with Sophie as well. Now actually partnering with them to try to help Angelique. So I think, to your point, it is maybe setting the stage for them to have a romantic relationship, but I think a lot of things have to happen for that to transpire, and one of those is Sophie having to really come to terms with the organization that the Crows is.
Well, the organization that the Crow is, and her grief over Kate. Yeah. I think that's what this season is building up to. Yeah. And then next season will be the season of romance. I'm just saying. The signs are all there.
Yep.
Signs are all
Yeah.
there.
They do have great chemistry on screen together too, so that definitely.
They do. I would argue they have better chemistry than her and Ruby.
Yeah.
I never was a fan of them together, of Ryan or Sophie and Kate together. I was like, this is way too forced.
Yeah.
But so I hope they take that lesson and don't force this and just allow it, which they are doing a good job of right now. Right now they're doing a pretty good job because, like you said, there's a lot of other stuff going on to prevent that being the focus. Mm-hmm. But I think that is it for us on Batwoman, because we got a very big episode of WandaVision together.
Yeah.
And by episode, I mean previously on, so we're basically talking about MCU history.
Yeah. Really?
This episode is what I've needed for the past 2 weeks from WandaVision.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, breaking these episodes crafted in such a way that pays homage to classic TV episodes. So
Mm-hmm.
to have this kind of flashback version or like this take on almost It's a Wonderful Life or Ebenezer Scrooge and all of that, I think was so well done, because they did it so that we could figure out how Wanda got to Westview,
Mm-hmm.
and B, also do a lot of retcon for the MCU,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll get there. And then also just tell an origin story that we honestly didn't even think we needed or wanted. But for some reason, when you're watching it, you're just like, this is why I liked her so much in Infinity War.
Yep. Yep.
And the moments that they chose, they didn't feel extensions of things that we've already seen. They felt very honest to both what we know about Wanda
Mm-hmm.
and WandaVision itself.
Mm-hmm.
Like the crafting, the shows that have been alluded to with how this season has unfolded with Mary Tyler Moore and Malcolm in the Middle, and planning them through these flashbacks. You're just like, okay.
Yeah.
They went so freaking meta. Oh my god.
Yeah. They did. Yeah. So I agree that this really did do a marvelous job of just basically I guess for me, it validated why I have come full circle on this from when we started watching this show.
Mm-hmm.
To your, one of the points you made was, again, building on all the various sitcom tropes, and one of the other classic sitcom and even show tropes a lot of times is to do the flashback episode.
Yep.
And so we got that one this week. And as far as origin stories, I remember whenever we first started talking about WandaVision, the first couple episodes, it was for me as a MCU watcher, it was like, okay, yeah, Wanda and Vision they were characters in the story, but not ones, and they had notable moments in the story, but they really did a marvelous job over the course of these 8 episodes of really making us care about these two characters in the MCU in a way that in a way that people do about Tony Stark, in a way they do about Steve Rogers. Now I feel, and the metrics bear it out. I mean, people feel that way now about Wanda and Vision.
Right.
And so, this hats off to the creative team and the way they structured this series, and a very linear storytelling this time in this particular episode.
Yeah. I mean, we should just do a retcon of Captain America Civil War and replace the Peppercross scene with the scene in this episode about grief.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's something that, looking back on, up until this point, we never really did see her grieving the loss of her brother.
No.
And on top of that, from what I heard, a lot of people have gone back to Age of Ultron and rewatched that movie, because the motivation of the twins originally is very like, okay, we have no connection to you and your family, so it's going to seem a bit thin.
Mm-hmm.
But watching the scene play out you see the loss of innocence and everything in that moment of that, maybe not the loss of innocence, but the loss of what life could be, or what a family should be that has been shown to them while watching all of these old TV shows.
Yep.
Like the white picket fence idea, which is beautiful and is a lot of what we've already speculated. We've already speculated that this is about grief, and TV is a way people escape some of their biggest emotions and because it's a safe place, because everything works out and nothing is real. And they talk about that a lot throughout this. And Agatha, I love Lizzie Olsen. All of her true fans call her Lizzie, by the way. I don't know if I hear Chris Evans call her that all the time. And I think Elizabeth Olsen is like, this is her episode. Mm-hmm. I do think, though, Catherine Hahn, without her, just the sprinkle of Catherine Hahn that you get in every single beat, and the way that Marvel, that they've constructed not only the story about Wanda, but they've used Agatha in such a way that you're also realizing along the way. So last week was a farce, and it wasn't Agatha all along. It's been Wanda all along, and Agatha is just here because she's been trying to figure everything out, just like the rest of us.
Yep, exactly. And that's what's so great about this show. I mean, we talked a few weeks ago about how Jimmy and Darcy were us, and now you're so right. It's Agatha. Now Agatha is us. We're trying, all these all these Easter eggs, all the things they throw out every single weekend. We're theory spiraling, and they get all blown to hell. Agatha is that person now, and you're right. I was talking with someone who was disappointed that Monica wasn't in this episode, and they didn't need to be. This really had to focus. It really, to your point, it really was Wanda all along, and for this episode to work, it had to pair off Agatha and Wanda solo, so they could really explore and get into the deeper depths of the things that we've been getting. All these all these commercials, the Stark toaster. I mean, the bomb being the toaster, the Yo Magic, and Agatha's taking her back to the scene that we saw at the end of Winter Soldier, when we first introduced to Wanda and her brother, and
the heart
and the heart. Oh yeah, and
my god,
yeah.
The heart on the calendar, which we learn is pretty much the heart on a note to Wanda about this is where to grow olden.
Yeah, people. Yeah,
to grow olden.
Yeah. I mean, Vision had bought a plot. He bought this lot, and he had that the heart from we were all like thinking, what does this heart mean in the first episode, and what does and we get the answer. It was them to a space where they could retire and from being superheroes and grow old together, and that was another beautiful thing about this episode, when we see the moment that Wanda and Vision fall in love, and again, it was, as we talked about before, it was a place of grief, and of course, I mean, everyone is, clearly the big takeaway line, in addition to the grow old and from the week is, but what is grief? Is it not love persevering?
Yeah.
I mean, damn. I mean, I had to stop for a moment when I was watching that for various reasons. Obviously just recent, at least with my father, but such a simple line but so profound.
Right. Right. It's classic Vision from Age of Ultron.
Yeah, it really. Yeah.
I mean, we all that movie is that movie, but everyone remembers Vision and Ultron talking at the very end.
At the very end. Yep.
And Vision's best moments are when, and you'll appreciate that, is when he goes full Data on you.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah.
And it just speaks the truth, even though he has no ability to understand humanity because he's not human.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why that line in particular just hits home, because it's a classic Vision line that is just pulls you back into how on earth do you have a woman fall in love with a robot? Yeah. Well, that robot says things.
Yeah. And he says things. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, that's not the only magic trick that this episode does, because something that blew my mind is, I remember when they were first announced, we're going to have Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch and everything, but I think even when Ultron was first dropped, there was speculation, will they ever call her the Scarlet Witch?
Right.
And that there's been so much time removed that debate has kind of just ended. And so now in this episode, that's the last line that Agatha says. This is chaos magic, you're the Scarlet Witch. And we're just like, They said it?
They said it.
This is what this episode and this pretty much up until this point in this season has been building to. Just that name drop. And why am I so satisfied? Because it's freaking awesome.
It was, yes. Totally. It totally was. Because up to this point, yeah, we all called her that. But again, how meta the show is. And also, yeah, Agatha dropping that and... boom, it was like, drop the mic. That was like, I literally was like, I started clapping. I was like, they did it.
It's such a bizarre thing to feel satisfied over, because this whole time we're like, oh, Dormammu or these other people might come in and she's going to call them out. And then no. It's not about them right now. It's about Wanda who Wanda really is, which she's a Scarlet Witch. Duh.
Yep.
Well, what does that mean? What does that mean? Yeah. So I thought was such a funny thing, or not even a funny, but just this way of where, again, this balancing act that they've been doing of all this love, loss, exploration through this episode.
Yeah.
And then it goes straight back into, but whoa, this is still the MCU. So yeah, we're going to drop some names for you and some power, some abilities. And then also, we can't fully go non-Vision. So we have to bring him back to life.
Yep. Yeah. And kinda. Yeah. But again, how well they just pulled all the threads together. Because with Hayward manipulating the situation, and because at the and also I guess a failure on the part of maybe the Avengers, and how reckless or maybe it wasn't that, maybe they just since he was a part of Sword and which is an outgrowth of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the whole and thinking to the bigger point of the Sokovian Accords. And thinking back to Civil War, of course, Vision siding on the side of Tony Stark, and I guess they were able to, instead of giving Vision a proper funeral, he you're right. I mean, it reminds us of the point that he is a robot and he is a creation, and I think back to the episode where Hayward was like Wanda breaking into the lab, and of course we see actually what actually ends up happening. She didn't still take Vision's body. They kept it to build a weapon. And he says, look, while they're having that conversation, which was where he was manipulating the situation with Wanda whenever she went to the Sword headquarters. we can't let we can't let millions of dollars of that vibranium go into the ground, and he plants these various things in her because I don't know if he was going to use that to maybe have her conjure up, given that Vision did get his original powers from the Mind Stone, and Wanda, we learn also she got her powers, at least they were awakened by the Mind Stone.
Yeah.
And
so much freaking retcon they did. They even retconned the show itself with that.
Yeah,
they
did. They retconned within a retcon.
Remember when you thought we showed you her stealing his body? Yeah. We didn't show you that. We just led you to believe that.
Yep.
And this is actually what happened.
Mm-hmm. And
it's like we led you to believe that Tony Stark's missile just didn't go off, which still we're going to let you think, well, maybe she already had the powers and she did something. So it's just, I don't know. Why didn't they just call this retcon?
Yeah. Well, that's previously on.
Previously on. But wait a second, we're going to retcon what we previously showed you. Because they retcon past, future, present, everything.
Everything, yeah. But also, one little other note I was thinking about that is sort of hanging out there, especially when we see the White Vision at the end in the mid-season credits, is Darcy finding that computer program whenever she hacked into their Swords system. And there was that file that she was trying to learn more about. So I think that file is probably tied to the White Vision.
Yeah. See, we were just talking about a show that we love that has great writers, but the episode pulled together, and I'm talking about Batwoman, pulled together points in a way that didn't engage us. It was like a lot of exposition, some action, and just like kind of pulling everything together. This episode did that same thing. The difference, though, is I never was bored.
Right.
And I never felt like I was thinking too much. I was just letting things happen. Mm-hmm. Like we shouldn't be watching the shows to be like, oh, let me just think about why they put that there so that then I can basically tell myself what's going to happen instead of actually just watching it all unfold in front of me, which is what WandaVision did this week. It's like, nah, we're going to retell you these stories, and for some reason it's not going to be boring even though you quote unquote already know this. Mm-hmm. No, we're going to replay it in a different way, share some new insights, and then just be like, bam, she's a Scarlet Witch.
Yep. And all fan and non-fan of comics alike love that moment. Yeah. I mean, it was so satisfying. I mean, we, clearly you and I know that's what she was being known by, but if you came to the show with no previous history of Marvel, then you're equally satisfied.
It's just, even when she was saying it, I was like, where's she going with this? Mm-hmm. What did you do?
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, after all the people who are like, Mephisto were like, she's going to say Mephisto, and then she was like, the Scarlet Witch, and they were like, boom, my mind just exploded.
There was no theories about that. Oh, man. Well, I think that is it for us tonight. Yep. Will, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Yes, you can find me at Will M. Polk, WILLMPOLK on Twitter.
And you can find me at SJ Belmont, SJBELMONT. Please follow our crew on Twitter at CNN Nerd. Friend us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, but most importantly, rate, subscribe, and comment on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcasts. Good night, Geek Out. You're welcome.